Hello. Welcome to this community memorial service, the celebration of the life of our friend, colleague, and journalist Todd Baucher. I'm Pastor Kurt Busick of Emmanuel Baptist Church here in Parkersburg, and I'm honored to help out at this event. I don't know why, but on the way in, the image of the Little Mermaid came to mind, where doesn't Ursula the Sea Witch steal the voice of Ariel? Am I right on that? I forget, there was some spell involved, but Roger Shepard should be here, but the respiratory distress has taken the better part of his voice, and so he's stealing my voice to be here. Yeah, I'm glad, honored to be here. Let's open with a prayer. Father, it's a dreary day, and yet we are here to remember warm and bright memories of someone who has made a significant contribution to this community. He is informed, he is entertained, he is inspired, and we would just ask that in this time we could remember and also express gratitude for all that he's meant to us, and we pray that your peace would rest upon the family especially, and all the friends that are here as we reflect on his life. Be present here by your Spirit and maybe teach us things that we need to think about in this time. We offer all this in Jesus' name. Amen. I've been here since 2001, and I've seen Todd many times watching the local news, although I don't know him. Many of the funerals that I do, even the people that go to my church, I don't necessarily know them. So I've always seen memorial services as an opportunity for people to think about life and death, things that are eternal and transcendent. I also have always felt like a memorial service ought to inform us so that we would leave here knowing this person better in some fuller sense than what we do. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. Sitting up here on the stage are some of the many awards that Todd won for journalism over the years. Those awards only tell part of the story. Todd was a person who cared deeply about people, the truth, and reporting the facts, and that's among the reasons we'll miss him so much. Today we'll see some videos of Todd that will help to tell his story, and we'll hear from some of his current and former colleagues and hear more about the person he was off camera. And if there's time, we'll give some of you an opportunity to share some of your recollections of Todd. But we'll try to keep this program about an hour, and so your remarks will have to be brief. So we'll see where we are when we get there. To start things off, let's go back 2 short years ago when Todd announced that he was retiring from WTAP after 41 years on the job. Here's the story that WTAP aired at that time.
It was a lot of time, frankly, spent in front of the TV. I think from day one, okay, some 60-odd years ago, I was always attracted to particularly to the TV and sometimes radio, but always to broadcasting. I mean, I grew up, admittedly, in front of a TV watching, well, not the news at the beginning, but it was more like what kids normally watch, cartoons, TV comedies, game shows, that kind of thing. But I just had an attraction to it. It was like, wow, these people are talking to a lot of people. They sound like they're talking just to me, but I know they're talking to the entire United States, and wouldn't it be fun to do that for a living?
Did you have one or two in particular that you really liked, that really drew you in?
Well, I don't want to talk too much about my childhood loves, but growing up at first, and this is according to my mother, but more her memory than mine, the original Mickey Mouse Club was something that drew me to the TV, and I grew up in the 60s watching shows like the Flintstones and Bewitched and that. Eventually, to kind of get to the point here, I realized that there was more to TV than that. You probably read about it, what the 1960s were like, and all the things that happened there, bad and good. And the news became something of my regular viewing habit. I think by the time I was in college, I was more interested in being a news person rather than being just a performer or an actor, if you will.
Can you talk to me about your time in college, but really how you got to OU and what drew you into the journalism program there?
Well, as far as Ohio U is concerned, it so happens that my parents went to school there. They actually met at Ohio University. I won't go into the whole story about that, but I've often thought, yeah, I'm a true product of Ohio University. But I knew about the broadcasting program there, and I kind of did a little bit of climbing the ladder. I was at a college radio station called ACRN, which I understand in one form or another is still in existence, maybe in a different form, and eventually went to WOUB, the public broadcast station there. Now, they may be a little different now than they were then, but back in those days, they had students doing a lot there. They had them doing behind-the-scenes work for TV shows. In the newsroom specifically, students went and gathered stories, sometimes out in the field. They actually did newscasts. They were on-air people just as much as what paid staff was there. So you got a lot of experience, and it was definitely at Ohio U where I got my experience going out and covering stories and making mistakes, which were very much referred to by the staff there in a learning category. There's a lot I did in terms of covering stories and writing there that I still do today here.
Okay. Do you have any stories that you really remember from your time there that stick out to you?
Not a big story, really. I think it's just the experience of having to do what we do now, making phone calls and trying to reach people who don't always get back to you right away. And I should say I didn't do a lot of television there. Really, I did do some on-air work late in that, but a lot of it, frankly, was radio.
Todd said, don't retire 2 years too early or 2 years too late. Turns out he got only 2 years of retirement altogether, not enough. Over the years, Todd interacted with lots of people as he reported on all kinds of news stories. Regular folks and elected officials too. Some of those officials are here today to share their memories of working with Todd. So we had asked Belpre Mayor Susan Abdella to speak, but she is taking care of her mother and will not be able to be here. But we do have a member of the West Virginia House of Delegates, Bob Fehrenbacher, and Wood County Commissioner David Blair Couch. If you would, wherever you are, if you'd make your way on up.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Bob Fehrenbacher, and I am a member of the West Virginia House of Delegates. But my experience with Todd predated that. His retirement basically kind of coincided with my election to the House of Delegates. But before I moved into the political environment, I was the plant manager of the Washington Works site. And every so often we had some event or something that was newsworthy, and more often than not, Todd was assigned to, follow up on that topic, that story. And so, moving back just a little bit, when DuPont transferred me here, Todd was a mainstay. I watched the local news, read the local paper, and every evening, or practically every evening, there was a story where Todd was the reporter. So I felt like I got to know a little bit about Todd. And then when I became the plant manager, I got to be the person that Todd was interviewing. And when Roger Shepard called and asked me if I'd speak at this gathering, I reflected and instantly decided the answer was yes. Because I always thought that Todd treated me with respect. In that news clip that we just viewed, one of the things he spoke about was him making calls, and sometimes people didn't get back to him. My experience as being the, if you will, the voice and face of the Washington Works site was there was a need for the community to know something. Todd was one of those people that was asked to get that information and share it with the public. And so I tried to be responsive and agree to interviews and answer the questions that he asked. So it was, my reflections about Todd was more not as a friend, but as, if you will, an associate that was connected to the public and serving the public's desire for information. I respected that, and I respected the way that he treated me and others that I saw him interview. So I'll miss him, and I wish all of you, his family and friends, my sympathies, and hopefully the memories of Todd will comfort us in the days and years to come. Thank you.
When Roger contacted me to come speak, I immediately Googled, what do you say at a memorial service? And it said, be sure and write everything down. So, of course, I wrote nothing down. Winging it was my forte. But as I remembered back on my experience with Todd, when I first got elected, he interviewed me in the courthouse. And then every election after that, he was in the courthouse. And he would, with Roger sitting at the commission table, counting the precincts coming in, we had a lot of fun. And later, when we had a different commissioner come, they said, is he always this loose? Because he'd come do the commission meetings and he'd film us, and Brett knows, and he would sit down and we'd joke about Cleveland football and Cincinnati football, Cleveland baseball and Cincinnati baseball. But I talked to Marty Suford, the county administrator, and I said, what's your number one memory of him? He said, well, he was always loose. He would like to laugh. He would like to carry on a little bit. And our new commissioner said he was never like that at the city. And so he'd watched us long enough to realize we're not out to do anything strange. But I remember some interviews where he would keep on asking different iterations of the same question. I knew he wanted a certain answer, and if I wouldn't give it to him, it'd frustrate him. So he would just try to do it a couple different ways. But what I remember most about Todd is if he's at the pearly gates, I figure he's going to be waiting for me to get there to interview me one last time. So some of the questions will be like, do you think you were driving too fast? Should you really have passed that guy on the right? But Todd was good, and they have a lot of big shoes to fill at WTAP, and I'm sure the right people will be there to do so. There's just so many great people came out of WTAP and their memories of Todd, and I don't want to take anything away about what was discussed in the newsroom or how he liked to be a part of everything. And I think when he got invited to go somewhere with the news crew after work, he wanted to be there. And he'll be missed. He was longtime standby of WTAP. So sorry for everybody's loss, and I think it's a whole community that lost on this. Thank you.
Todd had a lot of bosses during his 41 years at WTAP, and I'd like to invite WTAP's current general manager, Ken Long, and news director, Philip Hickman, to share some thoughts now. So wherever you are, rise up and come this way. What's that?
Philip's manning the camera out there for the...
Oh, okay.
You'll have to tolerate me alone. Philip's up there manning the camera, doing the important stuff. So, I don't know if I really want to say I was Todd's boss. I think we all learned from him more than he learned from us, certainly. If any of you knew Todd at all, which I know most of you did, but those that worked with him, we all knew that he didn't really like technology. He hated it, actually. he really didn't. And when I think about Todd, that's what I think. Todd was old school. Now, and that's not a bad thing, because he was old school from a work ethic standpoint. He was old school professionalism standpoint, and he was old school from the standpoint that he just got it done. When we needed something covered, we could send Todd, and we knew it wouldn't happen. He would get it done. When I was thinking about this, well, okay, now I know why he hated technology. I found a quote. It said, "There are always people who are into the old way of doing things. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but things change. Nothing stays the same. If you can stay true to yourself, you're always going to be legendary." I think that kind of describes Todd and why he was legendary, because he did stay true to himself. A number of people that are here today that came through the newsroom that learned so much from Todd, just how it works, what you do. There's a young lady that works for us now that was actually interned in the newsroom. She's now working in a full-time way, not in the news capacity, but in another capacity. But she told me the other day that she went on when she was interning, she went on a story with Todd. And they walked in, he had a conversation, less than 10 minutes, he said, "It's time to go." She goes, "We just got here." He said, "I know, I got everything I need. It's time to go." She said he went back, he sat down, put it together, hammered it out. She said it was a great story. He just knew how to do it. He knew what he was doing. And I think one of the most amazing things that I saw with Todd in my time, years, and some of you probably remember the story, and I won't go into the details of it, but years and years and years ago, several years ago, there was a murder case that was in Marietta, Ohio, that Todd covered. And it laid as a cold case for a long time, almost to a couple years right before Todd retired. And some new information came about, and Todd recovered that story. But yet, he knew all the information from the beginning. And why that is significant is that our business has changed so much. People come through so much. We just don't have people staying at a station for 40 years anymore that have that ability. And that's what made Todd legendary, the knowledge that he had that he could pull on and pull away from. And I'll tell you one more thing, and then I'll let this go. Right before I got here today, I got a phone call. And any of you that have ever been in a management position, but certainly as manager of a TV station, When somebody calls you and said, "Are you connected to the TV station WTAP?" Your heart kind of goes, maybe, maybe not. Well, that was the question that I got a little while ago. And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "Are you going to Todd's memorial today?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." So I really didn't know where it was going now. She proceeded to tell me that she lived in Belpre, and she said she was a senior citizen, and that Todd had donated all of his Ohio University magazines to the Belpre Library. And the Belpre Library has a neat thing there. They've got a rack or a shelf or whatever that they have things like that, and they put them out and people can go and take them. And she happened to be in there a day or a couple days after he had, and she said she knew it was Todd that had dropped this off because his name and address was still on the magazine. Technology. But it was still there. And she said that she took these magazines home and she was leafing through them. And lo and behold, her husband, who had just passed away, his obituary was in this one magazine. You never know how you're going to touch people through this life. Todd didn't know how he touched people. To his family, thank you for sharing him with us. It was our honor. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
It occurs to me that one of the great losses that we experienced with the COVID pandemic was the inability to do what we're doing right now. Had a number of people in my church pass away in that time frame, and we all had to stay away, and memorial services got delayed, and then a lot of them then never happened. And it's really sad that we were not able to come together to remember and to celebrate these amazing lives. You always hear things at memorial services that you didn't know that kind of fill out your understanding of the person. It also is important for closure. So many people, their grief is kind of frozen because they never had a chance to come together. So this is a positive thing. Some people think the WTAP is a training ground for other TV stations around the country because so many young people come and go through the newsroom. While it's true that WTAP is the place that some young journalists come for their first job, others like Todd make it their long-term home. So you'll hear from several current and former staffers today. Our first group, and if you'll come this way, if you'll welcome Denise, Alex Bazunas, Amanda Barron, John Fortney, and Phyllis Smith. If you'll come to the stage now.
I always end up going first with the name of Alex, so I hope to do Todd proud. First, I want to just tell you I'm very honored to have Todd as a friend and a coworker. I reached out to some friends on Facebook just the other day just to get a couple of stories from them, and they were multiple stories. But a few of them said that Todd was an inspiration to him, Corey Martin, who grew up in New Matamoros, because Todd inspired him to join the news business. And he is in Pittsburgh and has been there for almost 20 years, and it's because of Todd. Todd was a mentor to dozens of 20-something-year-olds who were just starting their TV news career. And I kind of joked around with some people today and said, Todd stayed at WTAP. He was smart. He hung out with 20-year-olds for 40 years. Like, who wouldn't, right? He had a beer, whatever he wanted, and got to hang out with people, and he always had a smile on his face. Yeah, and Todd was always the sober one, Polly, just so you know. He let us all have our fun, and he maintained his composure. There's a joke that I think I can tell you guys that's pretty PG. One time in the newsroom, I lowered Todd's office chair, and we always played pranks in the downtime, so Roger was nothing unusual. I lowered this chair, and I had this piece of fat-free cheese that I was not going to touch. So I decide to lower Todd's chair. I wrap the cheese around the chair lever. Jim's laughing. And I watch Todd go and sit down, and all of a sudden you hear a thump because he goes all the way down. And then he starts mumbling. We all know how Todd would sometimes be like, oof. So he got down, he got his hand on it. All of a sudden I see him look over his shoulder and just go, Denise? He knew it was me. And he never stayed mad at anyone. He had such a good sense of humor. But he did have frustrations with technology, rushing for deadlines, or wrecking a station vehicle or 2 or 3. It all stressed Todd out. He made us laugh, and he laughed with us. Todd always rolled with the punches. This brings me to 2 stories that I'll quickly share from some coworkers, Kristen Kirby and Elizabeth Green, and I'm going to read Elizabeth's in first person because I think it's a lot funnier. I have a story that probably isn't appropriate, but I knew you, Denise, would get a kick out of it. Todd was trying to edit something and his computer froze. I told him Control-Alt-Delete, right? Because that solves all problems. So it was close to time to export the video or it wouldn't make air, so stress level was high. Todd went Control-Alt-Delete, delete, delete out loud while pounding on the keyboards. Whatever he did made the view on the screen turn upside down. He walked off, mumbling, "Oh, I've really done it now." I still laugh so hard, I cry when I think about that. But I really don't think people have any clue, and I think we do now that you're hearing, how hard Todd worked to adapt to the constantly changing technology. Kristen told me that she had an assignment where she traveled to Todd's hometown of Mentor, where he was inducted into the Mentor High School Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame. It's where other fellow coworkers, Jenny Tomazik and Kristen, also graduated from, so Todd got a kick out of having all 3 of them together at the newsroom at the same time. Kristen says the special part of her interview was interviewing Todd's parents and how proud they were of their son. Kristen remembers Todd as one of the most genuine people that she's ever met, and I think a lot of us can say that. She kept thinking about how to describe him, and that's the word she kept going back to, was genuine. He was so honest and straightforward, which made him an incredible reporter. Coupled with his innate kindness, it really made him one of a kind. Such a wonderful person who made an impact on so many. I think I will remember Todd for something that many, including me, might have seen odd or different. Todd enjoyed going to Civitan Park and getting on a swing. He would just swing by himself, no care in the world. Swing, smile, no interruptions, he would just swing. Today I look back at how cool that really was, how cool Todd was, how he decompressed from daily stresses, including technologies and deadlines, and how therapeutic just getting on a swing was for him. He smiled and enjoyed being in his own company and having conversations with himself. That is really cool, and I think a lot of us might realize that now. I know Todd is still smiling now in heaven, figuratively and literally, where his forever crush, Mary Tyler Moore, saved him a swing. I guess I will introduce Amanda Barron, one of Todd's best friends and one of my former coworkers, who's amazing and kept him going all these years.
I'm going to talk a lot about what Todd taught me, and I'm going to cry, but you taught me a lot too, Denise, so thank you. Can you hear me okay? I want to start this afternoon with condolence letters from West Virginia Governor Jim Justice and Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. I won't read the whole thing, but Polly, I'll make sure that you have them. Governor Justice's it's long, but it's nice. It says, "It's with profound sorrow I acknowledge the loss of Todd Baucher, an exemplary figure in the Mid-Ohio Valley. For over 41 years, Todd proudly reported daily headlines and hard-hitting stories at WTAP, exhibiting commendable pride in his work. Todd was a dedicated journalist whose legacy was defined by his unwavering commitment to informing the local community about the news that affected them. He possessed extensive knowledge of the Mid-Ohio Valley and covered several meaningful stories over the years. His professionalism and contributions to the field of journalism in West Virginia will long be remembered. Todd's commitment to excellence was recognized through several awards and honors during his tenure at WTAP. Particularly noteworthy were the multiple accolades he received from the Associated Press, both in Ohio and in West Virginia. The prestigious AP Lifetime Achievement Award further spotlighted his outstanding accomplishments. I extend my deepest condolences to Todd's colleagues, friends, and the countless individuals who knew and loved him. I understand that words alone cannot alleviate the pain of this loss. Still, I hope you can find strength in cherishing the memories of such an exceptional individual. It's what he would have wanted. First Lady Kathy Justice and I will keep Todd's family, his friends, and the entire community in our thoughts and prayers in the days to come. Governor Jim Justice, State of West Virginia. I did read the whole thing. Todd's worth it. This next one is from Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. It says, Fran and I are so very sorry to hear about Todd's death. He was an amazing storyteller for more than 40 years. But it's his gift of sharing his knowledge and helping others, particularly young reporters, that set him apart and helped make him a good human. Todd will be missed. He just talked about helping young reporters, and I was one of those young reporters that Todd helped, especially when it came to politicians, and some of you are in this room right now. He told me to always go to their events, their dog and pony shows, with all due respect, ask them the question that they wanted us to ask, and then ask a real news question. Todd taught me that. I just told Mike DeWine about that the other day, Governor DeWine, and he laughed because he knew that Todd's style of reporting was commendable and respectable, and those two letters are proof of the kind of journalist and reporter Todd was. Todd was a reporter by trade, but he was a teacher by default. He was a teacher in the newsroom. He taught all of us punk kids that walked in there and thought we knew it all the second we walked through the doors of the WTAP newsroom and the ink was barely dry on our diplomas, but we were going to be Katie Couric or whatever, and we were going to change the world. But Todd taught us something every single day. We learned from him every day, over and over and over again. He helped us, always gracious. Always patient, and always just wanting us to get it right. Sorry. Todd was also a teacher to the masses. He taught everybody in the Mid-Ohio Valley every single day, every night, for 41 years through his reports on the news. And Todd taught in his retirement. In the last 2 years, he still would call in news tips. And his former boss, Philip, up there, who I just talked to the other day, said that Todd would still answer questions about those news stories. You know, the ones where you have to dig deep, like we just heard about? The ones where you have to dig back in the archives? It's easier just to go to Todd. Yeah, you didn't have to do the work because Todd had already done it. But he did it already, and he still answered those calls, and he still willingly answered every single question that they had. Philip called him the walking encyclopedia of the Mid-Ohio Valley, and I don't think it gets more true than that. He knew it all. Todd wasn't the reporter who wanted to be on camera all the time or was posting to social media to get likes and clicks and feel good about himself or trying to get a byline on a web story. He just wanted to do the work. He was humble. It was the work that he liked. So it's no surprise that a man who was a teacher by default is still teaching me even after he passed away. I learned in the last 7 days that things that he probably never had a reason to tell me, that coffee story about him flipping on the coffee every morning is really getting to me. He had no reason to tell me that, but all of these things are things that are making me love him just even more than I already did. The most astonishing thing to me, and I feel kind of bad that I didn't know this, I don't know how we missed it. Maybe it's because I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, but he was a big Aerosmith fan. I guess I kind of knew that, but what I didn't know, and Polly told me, is that he went to a couple Aerosmith concerts, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. I didn't know. I wish I would have known so I could ask him about it. I learned that the Mary Tyler Moore Show is actually pretty funny. I watched my first episode of that yesterday morning looking for inspiration, and I actually will watch a few more again. I'll call and report to you, Polly, let you know what I think. I also learned more about the Peanuts gang. Now, because of Todd's love of them, I now too have an enormous appreciation for the wholesome and simple way that Charles Schulz captured this complex life that we live and our relationships with others through those characters and through comic strips. The first comic strip that I saw, there were a couple that I saw that really embodied Todd to a T. The first one is one where Charlie Brown's younger sister Sally says, "Happiness is having your own library card." Spending the day at Alden Library on the campus of our alma mater was truly one of Todd's joys. In fact, sometimes he would be at the library before we would meet up in Athens for an Ohio University football game, which we did once a season. We would also get together for lunch and dinner here and there, and we would chat on the phone, and we would occasionally text, just occasionally. I knew that we enjoyed each other's company. But over this last week, I've learned something else. I've had a chance to get to know his little sister, Polly. And through my conversations with you, Polly, over the last 7 days, I've learned that with you being so far away in Texas, I hope I can be so bold to say I think I was just a local version of you. I think that we share a lot of things in common in the way that we talk, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you. And I think that I probably reminded Todd a little bit of his sister that he truly adored. When we spent time together, Todd and I would talk about a lot of things, but news of the day and the past dominated our conversations. And of course, what was going on in the newsroom did the same as well. But it was in the last 3 years or so that I started learning something much deeper from Todd and about Todd. He wasn't trying to teach me. It wasn't like what he would say or like a lesson in the newsroom. It was what Todd didn't say. While it would have been really easy for Todd and I to sit there and have conversations about all the gossip and all of the off-the-record information that we both had and the tips that we had, the juicy stuff, the tea, as the kids call it today, Todd never, ever, ever broke anyone's confidence. He never said a harsh word about anyone, ever. In fact, if a conversation was heading in that direction, he'd stop himself. He was truly everyone's friend, whether you knew it or not. Todd and I never talked about spirituality, but I can say with confidence that he lived by the golden rule. He walked the walk. In fact, one of our former coworkers said that even when things got crazy in the newsroom and the days were hard and long and hectic, he was always helpful no matter what, no matter how busy he was, no matter how much that technology was frustrating him. She said, and these are her words, he was kind and focused on staying positive. She said that he led by example. A member of the law enforcement community in the Mid-Ohio Valley who worked with Todd told me that he was disciplined and that he was trustworthy. Todd always walked the walk. As broadcast reporters, our stories have to keep focus. We often say to each other, you know this line, tell me your story in one sentence. And mine for today about Todd, for this assignment that I had, was that Todd walked the walk, always. So would you believe that while I was trying to find the perfect, poignant comic strip, the Peanuts comic strip, to put it all together, I came across one where Lucy and Charlie Brown are interacting like they always did, and she tells him that she wants him to kick a football that she's going to hold. Here it is. He says, "I can do that," and she commends him for his positive attitude. And in the comic strip, I'll read it right from the comic strip, she says, "I can't believe it. You're truly amazing. You talk the talk and you walk the walk." In the end, she pulls the football away so Charlie can't make the kick. So I'll pause for a second here because I have no doubt that Todd would be able to very quickly take this moment and Charlie Brown and football and all of that kind of stuff and turn this into a joke about the Bengals season right now. Which leads me to Todd's only fault. How does a kid from Cleveland become a Bengals fan like that, right? I know the story. It's deeper than just being a Browns fan or a Bengals fan. He had some special moments that led him to that, but we would always go back and forth about that. In fact, the other day I had to say to my dad, stop harassing him on Facebook about that. Leave him alone. So it's only fitting that the Browns and the Bengals play tomorrow. And in honor of Todd, I hope they win. But the truth is we already made it to the playoffs, so it's fine. Todd would appreciate that. I digress, and I want to leave you with those words from Lucy to Charlie Brown in that Peanuts comic strip. Todd was truly amazing. He talked the talk and he walked the walk. What Todd taught me in the newsroom has helped my career tremendously. But what he taught me about how to live through his example is something that I will treasure forever. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Fortney. Todd would be touched that you are all here today. Thanks for attending this celebration of life for a remarkable man. Todd Baucher found his home right here, a home in the valley that starts in Athens and his alma mater, Ohio University, to Parkersburg and Marietta and the WTAP audience. Now, my memory of Todd started well before I came to work for WTAP in December of '88 doing a production shift. And then in the spring of '89, as a junior at Marietta College, I was hired to do the 11 p.m. weather on the old magnetic weatherboard. But it was clear to me then that I had some work to do because Todd was a workhorse. And that's something we need more of in today's newsrooms, more workhorses and fewer show horses. Growing up out in Vincent, I used to listen to Todd do the school closings on WBRJ radio, broadcasting out of Marietta. Then, of course, Todd was on my parents' old floor model RCA TV in our living room, and he anchored the morning news, the cut-ins on WTAP. And in his retirement video, Todd said it was something that he always wanted to do. Truly, it was his calling. You know, when I think about WTAP, I think about all the people and professionals who sacrificed so much to build the foundation of the station for generations to come. And I'm going to talk about a few names today. Glenn Wilson, Roger Shepard, Jim Wharton, Kathy Lucas Stevens, and Todd Baucher. Todd simply taught us how. He taught me, Mike Kallmeyer, Amy Paul, Shelley Sinland, Michael Schlesinger, Deborah Schwartz, Marilee Morrow, Sonia Debrazzini, Teresa Marsenberg, Max Harris, A.J. Fox, Kim Parrish, Stacy Van Dyke, Katrina Cravey, Don Harmon, Rebecca Little, Kirk Greenfield, and many more, simply how to be journalists. All the things that you don't learn in college. Todd's 41 years at WTAP were really, truly a blessing and an opportunity to learn from the very best. He was a role model of storytelling that focused on the facts and fairness and people. He had a real gift, an expert level understanding of what the story was, what the headline should be, what really mattered. As a young reporter, I went out with Todd to cover Parkersburg City Council, Marietta City Council, the Wood County Board of Education, the Marietta City School Board, all of the local government stories that I had absolutely no clue where to begin. But Todd paved the way for me. He taught me how. Today, you know, so many elected officials don't want to talk on camera, but back then, so many just walked up to Todd and said, "Hi, Todd, hello, happy to talk with you after the meeting." That's because they knew Todd was what every reporter should be: fair, fact-based, knowledgeable, someone who did their homework, and he definitely did. From the foundation of the station, Todd helped build the walls of our careers and of the TV station. When I came back to work for Roger Shepard as the news director, Todd was the role model who taught all of the new reporters how. Ashley Sturm, Haley Skeen, Danielle Staub, Brooke Thibodeau, Tracy West, Tracy Anthony, Abby Schrader, Ashley Rittenhouse, Rachel Monjovi, Amy Kaufman, Molly Laird, James Sparvero, Allison Burke, Lauren Keeling, Brittany Sweeney, Jillian Risberg, and Stanley Jefferson, and dozens more when Philip Hickman became news director. You know, when technology allowed us to no longer need a live truck, but instead a digital cell card backpack, Todd was often my live shot and lead story. Breaking news like huge economic development announcements regarding oil and gas to election night coverage, he was my live lead. And I gave Todd all the hard stories, and he set the standard and showed us how to cover them. Todd had the insight, the historical knowledge, and hometown perspective to transform small market television into a newscast that rivaled much bigger markets with much bigger budgets and staff. Because of that, there was no one more deserving of the Associated Press of the Virginia's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2014. Little story for you. It was a memorable trip to Charlottesville that year, great speech delivered by Todd. And on the drive to Charlottesville, Todd was in the front seat with me, I was driving, and I think it was Danielle Staub and Brooke Thibodeau in the back seat. And I asked Todd, had you been working on your, oh yes, I didn't even get out speech. It was that important to him, and I think he was working on it as we were driving down there. Then in 2022, Todd was inducted into the Ohio Associated Press Media Editors Hall of Fame. Highly respected among his peers, talented, humble, and kind. You know, I took the time to acknowledge all the people that I could remember that I worked with who also worked with Todd at the same time. And I did that because it is really a remarkable story, Polly, about all the lives he touched, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, Jeff Nutter, Kevin Buskirk, Larry White, Gene Monday, Daniela Vidal, Mike Brown, Rob West, and many more who kept it all in focus, so to speak. Final story about Todd, this one outside the newsroom. When I went to Columbus to work for the Ohio News Network and WBNS, something that I could have never done had it not been for Todd showing me how. I happened to have a couple four-wheelers, a couple Hondas, ATVs at my friend's farm in Canal Winchester. Well, Todd had called me and I happened to be on vacation, and I said, hey, stop by the house, we'll spend the day over at the farm riding the trails. Well, he was a little reluctant to hop on one of the Hondas, but after a little encouragement, the city kid from Mentor, an OU icon of broadcast journalism, had a smile that made all those trails and muddy creek crossings, and yes, we crossed the creek several times. That smile, I can see it today, it still lives on in my memory. We had fun. Todd had fun. Today, newsrooms are people processors, revolving door of short-term memories and who was that's and oh, I don't remembers, and it doesn't really matter. But not here. Not Todd. He remembered everyone, and we will always remember him.
This is a tough crowd to follow. Everything they said, so beautiful. Hello, everyone. My name is Phyllis Smith from WTAP. Todd was my coworker at WTAP, and I started in 2015, and I worked with Todd until he retired in 2021. Our desks were right beside each other. We were desk mates, and I got to know Todd pretty well since I sat next to him. I tried to help him with technology. I know it did frustrate him, but it frustrated me too, and I was always very happy to help Todd because I just respected him so much. He'd been at this longer than I'd been alive, so I thought I was always happy to help him. I always admired him for how well he was able to adapt, and I always thought he did such a good job. And one thing that I remember about Todd was that he was not a complainer. He just solved the problem. He never tried to get out of anything, and there was never any worry that Todd would get his stories in on time. And people in the newsroom respected and admired him because he was such a hard worker, resulting in him winning many awards in this field. There's probably even more awards than this. We went to the Ohio AP Awards together in 2022, where he was inducted into the Ohio AP Hall of Fame, which made him really proud, and that's where I met his sister, Polly. And even when Todd retired, he was still helpful to WTAP. He offered a lot of knowledge about WTAP for the station's 70th anniversary special. I saw him about 2 months ago at the 70th anniversary dinner at J.P. Henry's, and we sat next to each other. I always liked seeing Todd. He was in good spirits that night, and that's how I'll remember him. Rest in peace, Todd.
One thing I heard among those comments, which I hadn't really thought about, was simply that Todd tried to stay factual and tried to stay positive, which if you look at our country, I think David Brooks, a columnist, has a book out, and listened to a couple of podcasts with him where he says America has become much more mean. Our leaders have doubled down on anger and on hatred and on division, which will ultimately destroy us. I don't care what political persuasion you are. I begin to filter people I listen to now as to whether or not they try to stick to the facts and try to be positive, or they immediately go to the negative and try to demonize the person they disagree with. It's a toxic poison which is in our bloodstream, and I talked to my church about the fact that Christians should be about love and compassion, kindness, and that's probably the only antidote. So having a news person who tried to stay positive and tried to stay factual, it may seem insignificant, but actually it probably is our only hope. So another reason to look up to Todd. After Todd's sudden passing last Friday, December 29th, WTAP's Phyllis Smith put together a wonderful tribute to her colleague and friend, and we're going to watch that together now.
I always wanted to do this.
When there was a big news story in the Mid-Ohio Valley, chances are you would probably see Todd Baucher covering it. Todd could cover any news story that was assigned to him, whether it was an explosion, a presidential visit, or Groundhog Day.
Sonic, did you see it?
Todd worked many holidays and all kinds of different shifts throughout his career, whether it was getting up at 2:30 in the morning to anchor a morning newscast or reporting at the station until 11 o'clock at night for election coverage. Many different personalities came through the newsroom as the years went by, and Todd worked alongside all of them, offering his wealth of knowledge to new journalists learning about the area.
When you're working in a local station in a small market, you almost have to be, I hate to say an expert, because nobody's an expert on everything, but you have to know a lot about everything to do this job.
Todd earned the respect of officials he interviewed. He was given a Spirit of Wood County Award by the Wood County Commission on his 40th anniversary. West Virginia's governor congratulated Todd on his retirement in December 2021.
I congratulate you on your retirement. I wish you the very, very best. I hope and pray that it's just absolutely great beyond belief, but we'll miss you.
Todd won other awards throughout his time at WTAP for his news coverage. He earned a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Associated Press of the Virginias in 2014 and was inducted into the Ohio Associated Press Media Editors Hall of Fame in 2022. He had this to say after getting the award in Ohio.
If only Joe Burrow had gotten a little more protection from the Bengals offensive line this past year. This might be the second biggest thing that has happened to me so far in 2022.
Todd, as you can see, was a big fan of the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Guardians and was extremely proud to be an Ohio Bobcat as an alumnus of OU. The Mary Tyler Moore Show was his favorite TV show, and Aerosmith was his favorite band. Even after Todd retired, he would email the newsroom with story ideas and news tips. He played a huge role in WTAP's 70th anniversary special that aired this year with his expertise about the history of the station. Todd, all of us at WTAP thank you for your service. May you rest in peace.
We have now some other WTAP folk who wanted to share a thought or two about their friend Todd Baucher. They are Ashley Sturm Scharfetter, Jim Morton, and Roger Shepard.
Hello everyone, I'm Ashley Sturm, a former anchor at WTAP, and for the last 12 years, Todd has known me. But I've known Todd Baucher my whole life, and I think thousands of people here in the Mid-Ohio Valley feel exactly the same way. Because we do know Todd, we have known Todd. We welcomed him home into our homes every night on TV. When there was big, important breaking news, it was Todd to whom we turned to and to whom we trusted. Todd Baucher was the voice of the Mid-Ohio Valley. There are just a few select few of us out in this world who had the absolute pleasure of growing up watching Todd on TV and then going on to work with Todd, get to know him, and to be his friend. And Phyllis Smith and I are two of those very lucky people. The first time I met Todd wasn't actually in the newsroom, it was at Bob Evans on South Side. I was in high school, a waitress there, and he came in to eat dinner, and I begged my manager to be able to serve him. It was Todd Baucher. As a waitress, I probably served thousands of meals to thousands of people. I couldn't tell you a single person's order except that one. Todd ordered meatloaf. And I remember that because it meant so much to me to be able to serve him that. Sometime after that, the whole Parkersburg South speech and debate team came in for a fundraiser, and Todd happened to come in for dinner, that poor man. We swarmed him, Todd, please take a picture with us, and he did so graciously. And I still have that picture of Todd just sitting there at his booth trying to order his dinner while 20 kids, brightest smiles on their faces, got to take a picture with Todd Baucher. Todd and I have taken dozens of photos together since then, but that is still my favorite. I wish I could go back and tell that 17-year-old girl, one day you will sit and have beers with Todd Baucher. His will be in O'Doul's. He will come to your wedding. You will send him Christmas cards with your kids' faces on it. I certainly would have never believed it, never thinking I would be here today. Todd meant so much to so many people. I mean, that is clear today, right? But I don't think Todd realized how much he meant to some people. I was talking to David Carl, who was the 5 and 10 anchor when I was at WTAP, and he said, you know, Ashley, there was this particular story that Todd and I covered together. It was a huge story at the time, and David and Todd were really the face of it, and he said, it is what Todd taught me during that story, the people he told me to talk to, the questions he told me to ask, that landed me my next job in Albuquerque. David is no longer in TV, but he is in Albuquerque. He actually started a charity there, helping hundreds, going on to help thousands of people, and he met his wife. He said, if it wasn't for Todd helping me with that story, I would have never got this job. I would never be where I'm at today, and I wouldn't have my family. I also never thought that I personally would learn a phrase from Todd Baucher that I still use to this day in my career as a storyteller. Todd covered those big, huge, important stories, but Todd covered a lot of less thrilling stories as well. Maybe a dry commission meeting, I don't know. Go, just turning chicken shit into chicken salad. Todd made really good chicken salad. Man. Another favorite story that I have of Todd is I friend requested Todd on Facebook, and he did not accept my friend request until probably a year or more later, and Todd came into the newsroom. And I was like, Todd, finally you accepted my friend request. What took so long? And Todd got really awkward. And then everybody else in the newsroom said, he accepted your friend request, he hasn't accepted mine yet. Todd goes, oh man, your contract was coming up and I thought you were leaving, so I accepted it. I don't like to accept friend requests of people I work with. But I'm pretty sure that Todd Baucher became friends with everybody on Facebook that day in the newsroom. And it was such a big deal to me on my Facebook timeline, my life event. One of them is I became friends with Todd Baucher. I don't know a world without Todd Baucher. He's always been in mine. But I do know that my world, the entire world, especially the Mid-Ohio Valley, is a better off place because of Todd. Todd Baucher died my friend, but I will always, always be his fan.
Hello, I'm Jim Wharton. I worked with Todd for 2 or 3 years. I'm glad to be here today for family and friends. Is that how that works? Okay, thank you. Thank you. It all began at a 5,000 watt radio station. That was a quote from Todd's favorite program that he would use jokingly to talk about how his career all began. And it really would foreshadow, his life. Like most of us from the baby boomer generation, Todd grew up in front of a TV set, and as he said so on his video. His favorite show as a child was the Flintstones, and if it was a good day in the WTAP newsroom, you might hear him break out with a yabba dabba doo. But Todd's favorite program of all time was the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And sometimes he would ruefully sigh, if only life could be like the Mary Tyler Moore Show. For the younger people here, the Mary Tyler Moore Show is about a fictitious newsroom setting at a television station in Minnesota. And Mary Tyler Moore was a star. She played a producer who was just trying to break into the news business and kind of break the glass ceiling, because not many women were in the news business back then. Lou Grant was a gruff but lovable news director and Mary's boss, and Murray was Mary's confidant and friend, and also the foil for Ted Baxter. Ted Baxter was the anchor. He had a good voice, great hair, and an incredible ego. And it was a zany comedy and a great parody of television news journalism on the local level. But you could tell that the characters were written the way they were written, that they really did care about their work, and they cared about each other. Todd's life in some ways did mirror the Mary Tyler Moore Show. He had his eccentricities, but then again, who doesn't? He was truly committed to his work, and he truly cared about his coworker. When I first met Todd, he started back at the station in 1980 or 81. He was a 110 pound, bushy-haired, bushy-mustached, horn-ring-glassed, wrapped in a trench coat. And that was Todd Baucher. He would fill out physically as well as a reporter. Todd would take meticulous notes. He told all sides of the story, and he was determined to get the facts straight. Todd saw literally dozens of coworkers come and go through the newsroom, and he was always willing to give them the benefit of his experience and help them out with facts and with contacts. And for many, Todd was also more than a coworker, he was their friend. He became their friend, and he kept contact after they left the station. He would send emails, texts, phone calls. He would drive hours for a dinner date or a lunch date with their friends, and he took joy and pride in their accomplishments and joy in their life milestones. In the last scene of the final Mary Tyler Moore show, all the characters in the newsroom get together in a group hug, and for whatever reason, they start singing "It's a Long Way to Tipperary." And it was the last time they would be together. They were being separated by a sudden, unexpected change of ownership, and they were all gone, except for Ted. 8 days ago, we were separated from Todd by a sudden and unexpected medical affliction. I'd like to think that as he transitioned from this life to the next, as in the final scene of the Mary Tyler Moore show, he was enveloped in a hug by his mother and father, his grandparents, and his extended family, and by his WTAP family, Glenn Wilson, Sherman Grimm, and Nancy Hickle. And I can almost hear him sing. I'd like to give our condolences to his sister Polly, to his brother, and I hope you have a better understanding of how much Todd meant to all of us in his WTAP family. And now with more, I turn it over to Roger Shepard.
I'd forgotten about that song. I was hoping you were going to sing a little bit of it. Before I begin, I wanted to share with you, if I could, and hopefully my voice will hold out here, messages from some other people. It's not often that you get praise from your competitors, but here are a couple of messages we received this week from a current and former journalist at the Parkersburg News and Sentinel. This is from Jess Mancini, who was also in a piece of video you saw earlier, city editor for the Parkersburg News and Sentinel. My colleagues and I would like to offer our condolences to Todd's family and friends. I met Todd and Marietta a long time ago when we were both young reporters. Todd was a professional dedicated to his work and became the most recognizable reporter in our area that I've ever known. He remains the most recognizable even after retiring several years ago. I've never met Todd's family, but I know he had many, many, many friends in the Mid-Ohio Valley. And this from Steve Brodsky, who was a longtime reporter and photographer for the Parkersburg Sentinel. He said, when I first started as a reporter for the Sentinel, Todd was always willing to offer suggestions about whom I should speak with and where to go for information. He didn't view other reporters as competitors, but rather as another resource for the public to get information, though he didn't mind getting a scoop. He will certainly be missed. So I thank the newspaper for those. First of all, as I think John also did, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to thank Jim Morton and Max Harris for helping to pull all this together, and thank their wives for helping to hand out the programs at the door. There was a time before I ever met Todd Baucher that I was angry with him. A lot of people don't know it, but I first applied for a job at WTAP in the summer of 1980 when Durfee's TV Cable decided to shut down Channel 9, WNOWC-TV, where I had worked for one year only. I scrambled for a job. I came to WTAP only to find out they had just hired Jack Kane and Todd Baucher from WBRJ. So there was no room for me. I was crestfallen. I was lucky enough to land a job at the Charleston Daily Mail since I had some previous newspaper experience, but I'd been bitten by the broadcast bug, and 1 year later, when Jack Kane left to go to WCHS in Charleston, I met with General Manager Sherman Grimm at the Shoney's in Ripley, West Virginia, and he offered me a job. And as much as I loved working for the Daily Mail, I couldn't say no. At WTAP, I got to work with Glenn Wilson, Mary Sue Jackson, Jim Wharton, Randy Green, Todd Baucher, and Mark Sharippa, along with former WNOW pals Kevin Buskirk and Jeff Nutter. I loved it, even though WTAP was located in a building that looked like a disaster to the visitors that I would bring through. Am I right? Oh, absolutely. But working with Todd was a highlight of my time at WTAP. And when I left there in 1984 to go to Huntington and later KDK in Pittsburgh, I would still check out WTAP when I would come home to visit my mom. And when I was asked to return as news director in 1990, I was happy that Todd and Glenn and Jim were still there, along with new faces like John Fortney and Deborah Schwartz. The news department grew in proportion to the new newscasts we added. We asked Todd to specialize in reporting rather than anchoring, and my, did he do a great job. As I told the Parkersburg News this week, Todd was a walking encyclopedia of all sorts of information, and he was a valuable resource in the newsroom. We would have young reporters, as you've heard, who were asked to jump in the middle of an ongoing story, and we would tell them to go see Todd for background information before they headed out the door. They did, and their reporting was richer and better having done so. He was given the nickname of Toddo by news anchor Mike McNamara and co-workers Shelley Sindlin and Amy Paul Casulo, but everyone knew they could always count on Todd to deliver. Just the facts, ma'am, might have been the tagline for Sergeant Joe Friday on Dragnet, but it was also Todd's motto. We spoke a couple of times after he retired. I wish we'd done more, but he was a good friend, a wonderful reporter, and I'll visit. Thank you very much.
And we have one more tribute. We'll hear from a member of Todd's family, his sister, who had to drive here all the way from Dallas, Texas, after hearing the terrible news, Todd's unexpected passing. Please welcome Polly Boucher Condon.
I don't talk much in front of microphones, so please pardon me if I break out in tears. You don't ever have to worry about whether or not Todd loved you, because Todd always showed his love by caring. Caring by sending you cards. Hallmark's gonna have a stock tumble like you wouldn't believe. When I became a single parent, Todd always remembered to send me a Mother's Day card every year. Never missed a birthday, never missed a Christmas for my children or for me. He was a devoted son to my parents, always spent every holiday that they were alive with them. And we loved each other very much. He was your mentor, he was your news reporter, he was the face of the Mid-Ohio Valley, but to me, he was my big brother. And when I saw that I missed a call from Lancaster, Ohio, when I was on my way back from taking my daughter to the airport after Christmas, I looked down and I went, that's not Todd's number. And even though I was talking to the emergency room, I wasn't thinking he was gone. I was thinking he was hurt or something happened. But when they told me he passed, I was stunned. I don't know ever a time when my brother wasn't in my life. When I was born, Dad called the house. My grandparents were taking care of my middle brother and Todd, and he said, "It's a girl." And Todd was beaming. He was so excited. I tried to find a picture of him where we were all together when they brought me home from the hospital, but I couldn't find it. But he was so excited to have a little sister. And I don't think he ever lost that excitement. And I know I never lost the excitement of having a big brother. It's funny to hear the story about Todd having dinner at Bob Evans, because we pieced together some of the things that happened the night he passed, and it appears he was on his way to dinner at Bob Evans. And that's just appropriate. I want to thank you all for coming. I can't tell you how much it means to all of us. My brother wasn't able to come because he's in hospice, my middle brother. So it's been kind of a rough couple of days, but it feels wonderful to know that he was so loved and honored in such a way. Thank you.
We've heard many good stories. Is there anyone who wanted to offer one other comment or reflection or something that made Todd special in your mind? Yes, you're fine there. You know, I think people are listening online. They probably can't hear you unless you come up here. Okay. Yeah.
To start again, I'm Sharon Kesselring. I'm the Executive Director of American Red Cross of the Ohio River Valley. And I have two short stories to share with you about Todd. About a year after I started with Red Cross, and I'll be celebrating my 34th anniversary in a couple of weeks with Red Cross, I was a very minor player about a year after I started, but I was working solely with blood services. And we were having a very large blood drive at the time, very important blood drive, because we were having a holiday shortage and really needed to have a good blood drive. And unfortunately, there had been a new thing evolve into Red Cross that included unionization and unfortunately a strike at the time. And they were out front of the building, and Todd came in, and I said to him, Todd, understand, I know nothing about what's going on out there. I can't talk about what's going on out there. I'm a minor player here, so please don't ask me anything about it. Let me talk about the blood drive and how important it is for people to give blood right now. And of course, Todd opened up the interview with, so Sharon, tell me what's going on out front here and how that's impacting the blood supply. And of course, I learned very quickly. Todd gave me a very valuable lesson. Learned how to divert with a reporter on their questions. And I explained something, and then he again went right back at it because I hadn't given him the answer that he wanted to hear. And I've heard that earlier today from a couple of you, that he was that tough of a reporter, that professional of a reporter, that he would make sure and got the story. He never really got that story from me that day, but he certainly was welcomed to go outside and talk with those folks out there and have a conversation with them. But the second quick story I wanted to share with you is one of a more personal nature, because although it still has to do with my role at American Red Cross. A few years ago, and you may have noticed in the obituary, the recently acquired interest in aquatics and scuba diving. A few years ago, I was shocked to get a phone call from Todd in the summertime asking about our Learn to Swim program for adults, because I really thought he was going to be doing a story about it. That wasn't why he was calling. He was calling in order to sign up to take those lessons. And in checking with the person, the people that actually are in charge of that program, a couple of volunteer instructors that we have, it turns out that Todd was an amazing student for those 2 weeks of Learn to Swim lessons. And I think in that way, he was always teaching us valuable lessons of how to stretch yourself and find out a little bit more about yourself and take advantage of all the opportunities you have in your community, and what a community impact he was. I thank his family for being with us today, that we could share these stories with you. And I especially am thankful to the WTAP personnel and former personnel here today for the amazing way that you've been able to honor Todd. Thank you.
Two quick images come to mind. One is my favorite, one of my favorite movies, It's a Wonderful Life. It shows up every year. Even people that haven't seen it probably will watch it at some point. But Capra made it. Capra was a man of faith, and he specifically made it. And the George Bailey character, the temperature. Capra was a chemist in his undergraduate, and he knew that heat would change the composition of things. And so he turned up the heat on George Bailey to see if his faith would withstand the trials. And if you know the movie, George Bailey comes almost to the end, and then realizes that there's a spiritual realm. Meets an angel. But the story of It's a Wonderful Life is what would the world have been like if George Bailey had never been born? And he got the privilege of seeing what the world would have been like if he wasn't there. And it was it's very instructive that every person's life has an impact well beyond what they understand or see. Which, by the way, one of my thoughts about heaven is that in heaven, God is going to open your eyes and you are going to see the full impact of your life. You have no idea. You have absolutely no idea how many people you've talked to, you've touched, you've helped, you've supported. You've just lived your life, and where you've shown love or compassion or kindness, you have changed lives for the better. But then you've forgotten about it. And these people are going to come up in heaven, I believe, and say, you don't remember me, but, and I think that's going to go on like forever, because one life impacts so many. So what would the Middle Ohio Valley be like? Todd Baucher had not been here. And my second thing is I, for some reason, when Roger asked me, I thought of a poem that I've always liked by Longfellow, and I printed it out to close today, but I left it in my printer, and on the way here, I'm thinking, shoot. And then I realized, wait a minute. I think I remember most of it. It's a Psalm of Life. I found it in my grandmother's attic in Springfield, Missouri. Great old historic home. I was exploring, and I came across this old, dusty volume called Chief American Poets. I opened it up, and there's a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. A lot of you, it's familiar to many. Tell me not in mournful numbers that life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real and life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returneth was never spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow find us further than today. And then it goes on, but the phrase that I was thinking about for Todd was, the lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing o'er life's troubled main, a forlorn or shipwrecked brother, seeing, shall take heart again. So let us then be up and doing with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. I love that image. The lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime. And departing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time, footprints that perhaps another sailing o'er a stormy way will see and realize someone else has traveled that road and they made it, and maybe I can make it too. So I heard that over and over today, that Todd's faithfulness, his integrity, his work ethic, has impacted so many people and made the world a better place. So I guess I can conclude by saying Todd Baucher had a wonderful life. We are here to praise God for that. Some final notes here. Thank you to Parkersburg High School Principal Kenneth DeMoss and the Athletic Director Chris Way for graciously making this beautiful auditorium available to us. Thanks to Stephen Levitt and to everyone at Levitt Funeral Home who printed the brochures for today's event. And thanks to WTAP for the lovely flowers here on stage from Obermeyer's Florist. And we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to come and show your fondness for Todd. It means a lot to his sister and to his many friends and co-workers. And if I check the time, I should be able to get home to see the Steeler game. So I've heard a lot about Ohio football, but I've got to hoping that the Steelers hang in the mix. So, does anyone have any final thing that needs to be said that it's burning a hole in your brain and you really want to say it before we close? All right, let me close this in prayer. Father, you are a good shepherd. You make us lie down in green pastures. You leadeth beside still waters. You restoreth our soul. Even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we don't have to fear, for you are with us. Father, that is such good news. And as we've come through the Christmas season, your Son was sent. His name was Jesus, and it means salvation, but he was also called Emmanuel, which means God with us. Father, what a wonderful, hopeful thought that there is a God that is at the center of the universe who is epitomized by love, and that love has come to us, to be with us, to walk the path that we have to walk. And ultimately, Father, as Christians believe, you gave your own life because we had messed up. And everyone who looks to you and believes in you by faith will find their way to a great reunion with you and with others. So, Father, help us today to remember a wonderful life, Todd Baucher, but also to look further and realize that life is short. We need to think about whether or not we are ready for the next life. And, Father, I believe one way is to look and gaze for just a moment at Jesus on the cross and realize that there we see a love beyond what we can imagine. And as we gaze, maybe you might speak to us by your Spirit. Help us to call out to you by faith, to receive forgiveness, and to await the reunion. We pray all this, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.